Greetings, everyone. It's Phil Amerson with the To Be and Do podcast, and we're continuing conversations with Jonathan Massimi, Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. He's managing director at Civic Bloom. He's many, many things, and we've been talking about time and the centuries around us and wristwatches. But that means if we're thoughtful about that, we need to be careful in the way we think about the transitions in our lives. How time not only has shaped where we are in terms of institutions or communities, but these moments of transition will shape the future. And so, John, I know you've been thinking about leadership. Um, Dive in. Tell us some of the new ideas that you're bubbling that are bubbling in your head these days.
Thanks, Phil. Well, in terms of transition leadership, when we're working on like community spaces, currently finding myself within a faith community that's going through a time of transition. Pastor has announced their resignation, and now there's some planning happening. What happens the next day after we say goodbye? So we've planned the kind of like the desserts and where we're going to host and who's invited. But now it's kind of up in the air. What do we do the Sunday after the pastor is gone? And I've been through these transitions before, and what I'm finding more and more is there is a lack of like stability because people relied so much on the leader, and now in this time of transition, people some worry, some want to know what's next, others are very excited for a fresh start, others are holding on to what was and saying, well, what's going to stop happening, what are we going to start doing, um, and also in the leadership gap, you have individuals that want to step up and kind of take control. And
And
that's
those
where,
aren't always the best people to do it.
yes. So you have power brokers
Yeah.
that that want to begin to lead. And when we're looking at faith communities in particular, um, there's a very low barrier to participating in leadership outside of like ordained leadership because there are requirements and processes. Um, I think sometimes we do work out of that scarcity mindset where we don't have enough and we'll take who we can get, right? And I think in the past we've talked about this, like being a volunteer it's not a theological category. Like Jesus didn't say, well, hey, follow me, or we're gonna fish for men on Saturday at 1 o'clock and meet me at the church, right? It was this deeper calling of vocation. So calling people into something deeper whereby they can utilize their gifts um, in service to God. So some of the things I'm thinking about, and I know in John McKnight's work with ABCD, he speaks about the circle that's present within the communities, right? And triangles, which are the hierarchies, and institutions and systems tend to be more of hierarchies and triangles, and communities are circles. But what I'm struggling with currently is when when we're looking at the church that has a desire to be in the community, when are the triangles actually needed to begin some structure internally? And it's not to say that we need a heavy hierarchy, but there needs to be, I'm finding, a little bit of a structure in place whereby um, people know what direction we're going in and who's responsible for what. And I think when that's not articulated, people step up, and it's often the loudest in the room. And maybe without the triangle, it doesn't give us a geometry to recognize circles or create circles, right? Because yeah, and I'm thinking about that. Like, how do we position ourselves so that we can live into the circles within our community? Um, and at a beginning stage, is a triangle needed? And I know you have experience in leadership. Um, how did you navigate those spaces?
Well, it was different in every different space.
Mm,
Um, always pulling on me around John McKnight was another mentor I had, Robert Greenleaf, who wrote about servant leadership, and I had the good fortune of being with him. I'll tell you a quick story if I can make it quick. Um,
mm,
I remember visiting with Greenleaf, who had been a vice president at AT&T, and he talked about he was sort of the house radical and kept them always thinking in new creative ways. And Bob, I once made the mistake of saying, elites. What these elites? They want to run everything. And Bob looked at me and said, "And you think we would survive without them?" And it caught me up short. So the quick story is this: we were working in an inner city neighborhood in Indianapolis, and boy, did I have great ideas about how we were going to organize a summer program that had basically been basketball for the boys and cheerleading for the girls. And we were going to do all these other wonderful things based on the Danish folk school model of people, and it was finding their gifts, learning how to explore writing or dance or drama or whatever. And I wrote this 8-page proposal and sent it to Bob Greenleaf, and he wrote me back a little postcard, and all the postcard said on it was, "Phil, this is a great idea. Don't you do it." And I was so flustered by it, and this was before we had cell phones. I was on my way to St. Louis from Indianapolis, and I stopped 2 or 3 times trying to call Bob, and I finally got him on the phone, and I said, "Bob, you've confused me here. I sent you this proposal of what I was gonna do," and, Bob started laughing, and he said, "I
mm,
didn't mean for you to read that, 'Don't you do it.' I meant you to read it, 'Don't you do it.'" Meaning, you're going to take the lead, but include others in the leadership as well. And that was a life lesson for me. I think you can get too far ahead. I think you're right about the triangles. Somebody's got to fill in those spaces, but you can also get too far ahead of the group if you don't find ways to build some other sense of ownership, uh, and even passing it off. Now that's dangerous. I've passed off leadership and regretted it.
mhm.
So yeah, it's a balancing act and one that I've never done, perfectly.
Yeah, and thank you for that story. Um, yeah, even this idea of I made so I used to work in the municipal world as well, and we have org charts and things like so the challenge there was, how do I humanize and recognize people or build community within this triangle? Um, in the church world, yes, we do have like institutional structures, but on the Sunday morning, it is associational life.
Yeah.
And my thing is like, how can I bring structure into a circle, right? Where certain voices don't push people outside of it, right? And I'm not saying that we ever want to exclude people, but there are personalities that take up space in ways that don't allow others in.
Right.
Um, so I've been at other parishes where the person that had the outreach ministry that involved the kitchen. Well, they kept very good care of the kitchen, but no one was allowed to use the kitchen,
Yes, I
right?
know those churches.
Yeah. Everything was locked up and things like that. So even if I had someone with the gift of cooking or a master chef in the congregation, they wouldn't have access to that kitchen because that person has taken ownership in a way that does not allow others in,
So
right?
help me with a metaphor, John, because I I think there's a paradox here. The way I've been thinking about institutions and institutional renewal is that institutions gain strength as there is clarity about roles from the inside out, who we are, what we do. But renewal and new vibrancy and conviviality, to use that word from another world, often requires movement from the outside in.
Mhm.
There's gotta be a metaphor that shows that balance somehow of
Yeah.
both the leadership needed for strength, working to build talents and gifts that are inside already, but then how do you welcome the talents and gifts that are outside as well?
Mhm.
Um,
Eh,
I've thought of mangrove, uh, along the seashore and how they both protect the land, but also, allow for new life, uh, to come into near the shore.
mhm. Yeah, and I think in terms of, like, what's going through my mind right now, when we're thinking about the spirit at work in our midst, it is an act of breathing. Inhale, exhale,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So how are we inhaling, or what is coming from external? And then in turn, what is that doing? How is it how are we exhaling, and what is being released? And both um create growth, right? So when we're exhaling, our trees and things take it and then create oxygen. Um, so it is this act of breathing within the community, what's coming in and what's coming out. Um, and also was thinking around like the circle and the triangle. I don't know why an image of like an ice cream cone came, right? So in order to like
Huh,
understand or really enjoy the ice cream, you need the triangle to hold it sometimes,
yeah.
right? I understand, like, I want it in a cup. That's another thing, right? But there's something to be said around the cone, and there there can be pleasure found in the cone to where it supports the ice cream, right? Um, my daughter likes to lick it as quick as she can to get to the cone, right? Um, so it is a way of propping it up, um, and we speak of ice cream cones and ice cream and so I'm thinking about that as well. Like what is the best way to prop up the circle in ways that are life giving and where people can enjoy it from the ice cream all the way down to the cone. And I think one of the challenges we have with the triangle is um for many they have found there's no life in it. It's boring, it's routines, it's meetings. That should have been an email.
Right.
But structure enables things to happen. And I know we were talking before coming on about hockey. How horrible would a hockey game be if there wasn't rules? And now we're in playoff season. Fans go nuts when a ref misses a call because they're not following the rules, right? It doesn't, or so, and I know this can even tie into liturgy for us as well, right? How does the liturgy create this form around us whereby we are then freed within it to worship God, right?
Yeah. And liturgy is litur so is liturgy the triangle or the circle?
I think it can be the triangle that leads us to the circle, which is the table,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. And with the ice cream, we could talk about Sundays. So it all fits. It all works together. So it's
Well, I one of my crazy thoughts is I realize the cross is a central, uh, symbol for Christianity, but more and more, I think the table ought to be right up there.
yeah.
You
Most
know, think of all the times the table is critical, and of course, last Sunday's lection was the Emmaus Road, and that's that powerful, powerful story about he was recognized in the breaking of the bread.
yeah, yeah. I actually with this transition, I was preaching this Sunday on that. And one of the things that I noted within that, when we think about the gospel or the good news, we articulate in the idea of lost and found. I once was lost, now I'm found. But that story brings another element of the gospel around hide and seek, right?
Yeah,
So we often see Jesus hiding, retreating from crowds, cloaking his appearance so that we are then seeking him. And then in that seeking, he's revealed. Um, and when we see like the road to Emmaus, they're leaving Jerusalem, so they're going west. They're not going toward the
the wrong
sunrise.
direction.
Wrong direction, sunset, darkness, and God is revealed in an unseen. They didn't even recognize who Jesus was, and then at the table is where he's revealed to them in a new way. And what I share with the congregation is we see in this hide and seek gospel these phases where people have Jesus, then they lose Jesus, then they find Jesus, and in the finding they have to rethink Jesus. And what we see in Emmaus story is they found him, they're starting to rethink him, and then he's gone again. The process starts. It's we can never have a hold of him.
Yeah,
He's always taken off somewhere
yeah,
and appearing in different ways whereby we have to rethink. And then the rethinking is how we grow,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
Oh, there's so much more here. Well, we're gonna call it, an end to this one, but we'll do it again. Thank you, Jonathan Massimi, for helping us think about, hmm, leadership and community, and how maybe paradoxically you've gotta look for both to have vibrancy and health. God bless. Bye-bye. This is Phil Amerson for the Be and Do podcast.